Chapter 1. The invitation she should have refused. The letter arrived on black parchment, sealed with crimson wax that bore no crest. Ilara Thorne held it to the candlelight in her cramped apartment, watching shadows dance across the careful script. An invitation to the Blackthorn estate. No explanation. No signature beyond a single initial. K. She should have burned it, instead. 3 nights later, she stood before iron gates that seemed to swallow moonlight whole. The estate rose beyond them like a cathedral built for shadows, all stone spires and arched windows that reflected nothing. October wind cut through her coat, carrying the scent of old roses and something metallic she couldn't name. The gates opened without a sound. Ilara had spent 6 months rebuilding herself after Marcus, 6 months learning to sleep without checking the locks 3 times, to speak without measuring every word for hidden traps. The gallery opening had been her first public appearance since the scandal he'd orchestrated, her reputation shredded, her art dismissed, her name spoken with pitying whispers. Then the collectors had come, silent men in expensive suits who bought every piece she'd displayed and requested a private audience with their patron, the mysterious K, who apparently wanted to commission her personally. She needed this, the money, yes, but more the validation that her work still mattered, that she could still create something beautiful from the wreckage Marcus had left behind. The door opened before she could knock. He stood in a pool of lamplight that seemed reluctant to touch him, tall, carved from winter itself, with black hair pulled back from a face too perfect to be entirely human. His eyes caught the light like a cat, silver gray and ancient and assessing. Miss Thorne. His voice was cultured, controlled, with an accent she couldn't place. British, perhaps, but older. You came. You made it difficult to refuse. She kept her voice steady, professional. The advance alone was more than my last 3 years of sales combined. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe, or approval. I value what I commission. Please. He stepped aside with old-world courtesy. We have much to discuss. The interior swallowed her. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into darkness above. Portraits lined the walls, centuries of faces, all with those same unsettling eyes. Candles burned in iron sconces, their flames too still, as if the air itself was afraid to move. Ilara's fingers itched for her sketchbook. The architecture was stunning Gothic revival, layered over something genuinely medieval. All hidden corridors and impossible angles, but beneath the beauty ran something else, a sense of weight, of watching. You live here alone. The question escaped before she could stop it. Not alone. He led her through a doorway into a study that smelled of leather and old paper. But I am selective about company. A fire burned in the hearth, the only warm thing in the room. He gestured to a chair near it, then moved to a sideboard where crystal decanters caught the firelight like captured rubies. Wine, he offered. No thank you. She sat carefully, back straight, hands folded. Marcus had taught her to be wary of accepting drinks from men with power. Those silver eyes studied her, missing nothing. Wise, he said softly, and poured nothing for himself either. Instead, he took the chair opposite, close enough that she could see how still he sat. No fidgeting, no casual human restlessness. I understand you've had difficulty lately. Heat crept up her neck. If you're referring to the incident with Marcus Vaughn, I'd prefer to focus on the commission itself, of course. He leaned back, firelight carving shadows beneath his cheekbones. I want you to paint the gallery in the east wing. A mural, spanning all 4 walls. The theme, transition. Light to dark, summer to winter, life to be paused. Something beyond death. She met his gaze directly, watching for reaction. Transformation. The word hummed with strange emphasis. I'll provide references, access to the space, anything you require. The timeline is open. This is not a work to be rushed. And the payment? The advance covers 6 months, additional compensation upon completion, plus lodging here if you prefer. The work is best done at night. The lighting, you understand, everything about this was wrong. Too generous, too strange. But Ilara thought of her empty bank account, her half-finished canvases, the gallery owners who wouldn't return her calls. She thought of Marcus's smirking face as he'd told his friends she was a bit clingy, after she dared question where he spent his nights. The silence that followed had been worse than the mockery. Her voice, lost, her confidence, shattered. This commission could rebuild everything he'd destroyed. I'll need to see the space first, she said carefully, and I'll work from my own studio. Come here only for the installation phase. Something like disappointment crossed his features. There and gone. The East Wing is particular. The atmosphere may inspire differently if you work within it. I work better with boundaries, Mr. Kieran. He rose in one fluid motion, offering his hand. Just Kieran. His palm was cool against hers, not cold, but absent the warmth she expected. His grip was controlled, careful, as if he feared breaking her. I'll show you the gallery now, if you're ready. Ilara stood, following him deeper into the maze of corridors. The house seemed to pulse around them, alive in ways that had nothing to do with warmth or breath. Portraits watched their progress. Candlelight cast their shadows long and strange against walls that had witnessed centuries. She should have felt fear. Instead, for the first time since Marcus, she felt the electric pull of curiosity, of possibility, of danger, that might finally make her feel something again. Kieran paused before a door, carved with symbols she didn't recognize. When he looked back at her, his eyes held something complicated. Warning, an invitation tangled together. Last chance to reconsider, Miss Thorne. She thought of Marcus's casual cruelty, of her silenced voice, of 6 months spent invisible. Opened the door. He smiled, then small, sad, and somehow relieved. The gallery waited beyond, wrapped in shadows that seemed hungry for light. Chapter 2. The Gallery of Ghosts. The gallery stretched impossibly long, a corridor of marble and moonlight that defied the estate's exterior dimensions. Tall windows lined one wall, their glass so old it wavered like water, distorting the skeletal garden beyond. The opposite wall stood bare, waiting pale stone that seemed to drink in the candlelight Kieran carried. Ilara's breath misted in the air. November shouldn't be this cold, not indoors. The heating system is temperamental in this wing, Kieran said, as if reading her thoughts. He set the candelabra on a cloth-covered table near the entrance. I can have additional lamps brought in for your work. She moved deeper into the space, footsteps echoing. The proportions were perfect, cathedral ceilings that would challenge her, but not overwhelm. The light through those ancient windows would be extraordinary at dawn, filtering through in shades of pearl and amber. If she were here at dawn. You mentioned working at night, she said, running her fingers along the cool stone. Already her mind sketched compositions, figures emerging from darkness, reaching toward transformation. Why, specifically? The estate is quieter then. No servants, no interruptions. He remained near the doorway, watching her explore. And the light through these windows at night has a quality you won't find elsewhere. Ilara turned slowly, taking in the space. Something felt wrong about it, not dangerous, but sorrowful, as if the walls themselves carried memory. What was this room before? Silence stretched between them. When Kieran finally spoke, his voice had gone distant, textured with something old. A place where my family gathered, long ago. Your family isn't here anymore. They're here. His smile was knife-thin, just not in any way that matters. The temperature seemed to drop further. Ilara wrapped her arms around herself, studying him in the candlelight. He stood perfectly still again, that uncanny lack of movement, no breathing patterns, no weight shifts, just absolute control. Mr. Kieran, just Kieran. Kieran. Then she moved closer, curiosity overriding caution. If this is a family space, are you certain you want it painted over, transformed? Some things should be left as they are. His laugh was quiet, bitter. Miss Thorne, everything in this house is a monument to things left unchanged. This room, at least, deserves a different fate. There was pain beneath his composure. She recognized it because she knew its shape intimately. The weight of things that couldn't be undone. Words that couldn't be unsaid. Silences that calcified into scars. Marcus had turned her voice into a weapon against her. Clingy, he'd called her, casual and cutting. And his friends had laughed while she stood frozen. Every word she'd spoken afterward felt like confirmation, like proof of the flaw he'd named. So she'd stopped speaking at all, at least in ways that mattered. This man, this strange, controlled man, held his own silence like armor. I'll need measurements, she said, pulling her phone from her pocket. Photographs, and those references you mentioned. Relief softened his features. Of course, there's a library adjoining this space. I've gathered texts on mythology, transformation, the cycle of seasons, whatever might inspire. He moved toward a door she hadn't noticed, hidden in shadow. And Miss Thorne, I should mention that others may visit the estate while you work. She paused, camera raised. Others, associates of mine, they come and go at unusual hours. Something flickered in his expression, warning or apology. They may seem strange, but you'll be perfectly safe. You have my word. What kind of associates? the kind who preferred darkness to daylight, privacy to publicity. He opened the door, revealing shelves climbing toward infinity. My social circle is not conventional. Ilara lowered her phone. Are you in some kind of trouble? The question surprised him. She saw it in the way his mask slipped, revealing something raw beneath. Why would you ask that? Because people who need things painted at night, who live in houses like this, who talk about unconventional social circles, they're usually running from something, or hiding something. She kept her voice gentle. None. I'm not here to pry, but if I'm going to work in this space, I need to know if I'm safe. Kieran crossed the gallery in 3 strides, stopping just beyond her personal space. This close, she could see the silver in his eyes wasn't just color, it moved, shifted, like mercury in glass. You are safe, he said, voice low and absolute. Whatever else I am, whatever darkness follows me, I would never allow harm to come to you within these walls. Do you understand? She should have stepped back, should have recognized the intensity as a warning sign. Hadn't Marcus been intense too, at first? Before the intensity became control, became criticism, became the casual cruelty of a man who knew exactly how to make her doubt herself. But Kieran's intensity felt different, not possessive, protective, possibly just as dangerous, in a different way. I understand, she said quietly, but that doesn't tell me what you're hiding. His smile was slow, sad, and genuine. No, it doesn't. He stepped back, giving her space again. Perhaps in time, Miss Thorne. For now, will you accept the commission? Will you transform this room into something that speaks of change, of choice, of becoming? Ilara looked around the gallery at the waiting walls, the ghostlight through ancient windows, the weight of sorrow that hung like incense in the cold air. She thought of her empty studio, her silenced voice, her need to create something that proved she still existed, still mattered. I'll need to work in stages, she said. Sketches first, here in the space to capture the atmosphere. Then detailed work in my studio. Installation can happen in phases, whatever you need. And I want the truth eventually. Not now, but before this is finished. I won't paint transformation if you're hiding from it yourself. Something like admiration crossed his features. You're braver than you know. No, Ilara corrected, turning back to her measurements. I'm just tired of being afraid. Behind her, Kieran said nothing, but when she glanced back, his expression held something she hadn't expected. Recognition. Chapter 3. Patterns in the Dark. Lara returned 3 nights later with her supplies. The estate felt different in the deeper dark, more awake, somehow, as if the house only truly breathed after midnight. Kieran met her at the door again, dressed in black that made him look carved from the night itself. You came back, he said, and there was genuine surprise in his voice. You paid me to. She shifted the portfolio case on her shoulder. Though I'll admit, I considered keeping the advance and running. Why didn't you? Because I'm tired of running. She met his eyes. And because this place makes me want to paint again. Really, paint, not just produce. He took her case without asking, handling it with careful reverence. The gallery is ready. I've had lamps installed as promised, and the library is open whenever you need it. They walked in silence through corridors that seemed less threatening now that she knew their turns. Ilara noticed details she'd missed before, the way certain portraits had their eyes painted over with black, the scratch marks on some door frames, the faint scent of roses that never quite faded. How long have you lived here? She asked. Longer than you'd believe. Try me. Kieran paused at an intersection, lamplight carving his profile into something pre-Raphaelite. The estate has been in my family for 14 generations. I am the last of my particular line. I'm sorry, don't be. Some bloodlines are better ended. He continued walking, his pace measured, controlled. Tell me about Marcus Vaughn. Ilara stumbled. How do you mentioned an incident. I made inquiries. He didn't look at her, which somehow made it easier to hear. He damaged your reputation deliberately, sabotaged your relationships in the art world, all because you asked uncomfortable questions about his private life. Heat flooded her face, shame, anger, the complicated tangle of both. He called me clingy in front of his friends, said I couldn't take a hint, that I was always too much. The words tasted like poison even now. After that, I stopped asking, stopped speaking up, stopped being visible. And he won, Kieran said softly. Yes. They reached the gallery. He set her case down with careful precision, then turned to face her fully. Miss Thornellara, if I might implore you for your vision, your voice, your particular way of seeing the world. If I wanted silence, I would have left these walls bare. Something cracked open in her chest. Why does it matter to you? Because I know what it costs to lose your voice. His eyes held depths she couldn't fathom. And I've spent longer than you can imagine trying to find mine again. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the house. Multiple sets, moving with predatory grace. Kieran's entire demeanor shifted, shoulders tensing, eyes going sharp and cold. There early, he murmured. Who? The associates I mentioned? He moved toward the gallery entrance, positioning himself between Alara and the approaching sounds. Stay close to me. Don't answer any questions directly, and don't, under any circumstances, accept food or drink. Her pulse kicked up. Kieran, what 3 figures emerged from the shadows? 2 men and a woman, all dressed like they'd stepped from a different centre of velvet and brocade. Silver jewelry that caught the lamplight wrong. They moved with Kieran's same unnatural stillness, that absence of normal human fidgeting. The woman smiled, and her teeth were too white, too sharp. Kieran, you didn't mention you were entertaining. I'm working. Lydia, this is Miss Thorne, the artist I commissioned for the East Wing. How delightfully mortal. Lydia circled closer, studying Ilara like a painting herself. Tell me, little artist, do you know what you've walked into? A commission, Ilara said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. Mr. Kieran hired me to transform this gallery. Mr. Kieran, one of the men laughed arcade. How formal. Does she not know? Then, have you kept your nature from her, old friend? Kieran's voice dropped to something ancient and dangerous. Cassius, leave now, but we've only just arrived. Cassius moved with liquid grace, too fast, until he stood directly in front of Ilara. This close, she could see his eyes were wrong, pupils too large, irises ringed with amber. She smells of turpentine and fear. Delicious combination. Touch her, and you'll answer for it before the entire house. Kieran's words carried weight beyond threat ritual law. Ancient compact. The temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the windows. Lydia sighed, dramatic and bored. Oh Kieran, have you claimed her? Then, put her under your protection officially, because if not, she's fair game, and you know the rules as well as we do. She's under this roof, under my authority, that makes her mine. He stepped between them, and suddenly, Ilara could see it, the power he usually kept leashed. The predator beneath the gentleman. The law is clear. The law, Cassius sneered, was written when you still had a house worth protecting. Now you're alone. Kieran, one vampire playing lord in an empty castle, pretending the old ways still matter. They matter, while I still breathe. Vampire. The word hung in the air like a bell toll, impossible, and absolute. Ilara's breath caught. Vision, swimming. She should run, should scream, should do anything except stand frozen while her mind tried to reconcile fairy tales with the man who'd spoken so gently about transformation. But she thought of his cold hands, his absence of breath, the way he only appeared at night, the way he'd recognized her silenced voice because he carried centuries of his own. Get out, Kieran said, and his voice made the windows rattle. Come back when you remember how to behave like civilized beings instead of hunting animals. Lydia's smile widened. She didn't run. How interesting. She inclined her head, mockery in the gesture. Very well, we'll respect your claim. For now. They left like smoke, there and then gone, their footsteps fading into impossible distances. Kieran didn't turn around. You should go, he said quietly. Take the advance. Forget this place. I'll ensure your reputation is restored through other means. Ilara's hands were shaking. She gripped her portfolio case to steady them. You're a vampire. Yes. And they were. Yes. And you want me to paint transformation in a gallery owned by something that can't die. Finally, he turned. His face was anguished. I want you to paint hope in a place that has forgotten what it looks like. But I won't force you to stay in danger. She should leave. Every survival instinct screamed it. Instead, Ilara opened her case and pulled out her sketchbook. Tell me the rules. If I'm going to work here, I need to know what I'm dealing with. Ilara, tell me, she insisted, or I walk right now. Kieran stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled, genuine and sad and grateful. Sit, he said. This will take a while. Chapter 4. The Laws of Blood. Kieran brought her tea, actual tea, steaming in porcelain cups that looked older than countries. Ilara held hers with both hands, grateful for the warmth, while he sat across from her in the gallery, a safe distance, deliberate space between predator and prey. Where should I begin? He asked. The beginning, what you are, what they are, What rules keep me alive in this house? He nodded slowly. We call ourselves the Nightburn, though humans have used other names, Vampia, Nosferatu. We're not reanimated corpses or soulless demons. We're altered, a blood-borne transformation that rewrites mortality into something else. How old are you? 247, he said it simply, watching for her reaction. I was turned in 1779, during a particularly cold winter. I still remember the frost. Ilara's hands tightened on her cup. 2 centuries. The portraits in the hallway suddenly made terrible sense, the same eyes repeated across generations because they were all him, documenting the decades, and the others. Lydia, Cassius, members of House Corvus, a rival bloodline, they came tonight to test me, to see if I've truly fallen as far as they believe. His jaw tightened. There used to be 7 great houses in this region. Now only 3 remain, and my house Blackthorn is extinct except for me. What happened to them? War, betrayal, the usual vampire politics. He lifted his own cup but didn't drink, just held it like a prop for normalcy. We're organized into houses, hierarchies built on age, power, and blood oaths. The older you are, the stronger. The more humans you turn, the larger your influence. But there are laws. Tell me the laws. Kieran set down his cup, leaning forward with the intensity of a professor teaching survival. First law, consent. We cannot feed without invitation. Cannot enter a home without welcome. Cannot turn someone against their will. The curse itself enforces this violation, causes agony. So when you said I was under your protection, I invoked the third law, sanctuary. Any human claimed by a vampire within their own territory is untouchable by others. You're safe from Lydia, Cassius, anyone else, as long as you're here, and I live. The last part hung heavy, and if you don't, then you run very, very fast. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Second law, the masquerade. We hide what we are from the human world. Exposure endangers us all. Fourth law, no killing without cause. We feed, but we don't drain. Most vampires have arrangements with willing donors. Ilara processed this, artist's mind cataloging details. You said the curse enforces consent. So vampirism is literally a curse. Not a virus, not genetics. Something older than science can explain. Blood magic, perhaps, from an age when such things were simply true. He stood, pacing to the windows. We don't know the origin, only that it binds us to specific rules, grants us specific gifts, strength, speed, immortality, compelling presence. Some develop unique abilities over centuries, like what? I can feel the emotional resonance of spaces. Rooms remember violence, love, despair. I sense it like temperature. He traced a finger along the window frame. This gallery remembers joy. Once, children's laughter. Then grief so profound it still echoes. Your family, my wife, my daughter. His voice went hollow. They died of scarlet fever in 1823. I couldn't save them. Vampire blood doesn't cure disease, only transforms. And you can't turn children. The curse won't take in bodies too young. They simply die more painfully. Ilara's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I've had 2 centuries to grieve. It doesn't hurt less, but you learn to carry it differently. He turned back to her. That's why I left this room unchanged, why I want you to transform it. Perhaps if it becomes something new, something beautiful, I can finally let them rest. The vulnerability in his admission shocked her. This ancient creature, powerful enough to face down 3 vampires alone, was asking her help to heal a wound that wouldn't close. She understood that. God, did she understand that? What do vampires fear? She asked. Besides sunlight and stakes through the heart. Sunlight is real. It burns, eventually kills, but it takes time unless we're very young or very weak. Stakes are myth. Fireworks, decapitation works, anything that destroys the brain or heart completely. He counted on his fingers. We fear silver. It burns on contact, disrupts our healing. Running water weakens us if we're fully submerged. And we fear the hollow. The hollow. His expression darkened. When a vampire loses purpose, loses connection to anything living, they can fall into a state of emptiness. No emotion, no desire, just endless existence. They become shells, dangerous and unpredictable. Most requests final death rather than face the hollow. Have you ever come close? Yes. He met her eyes. After my family died, for decades, I went through motions, upheld laws, maintained the house because it was expected, but I felt nothing. Then, about 60 years ago, I started collecting art. started trying to feel something through beauty created by mortal hands. Did it work? Slowly, incompletely. He moved closer, carefully. But tonight, when you chose to stay despite knowing what I am, when you demanded to know the rules instead of running, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a century. Hope. Ilara's pulse hammered in her throat. She should be terrified, was terrified, but beneath the fear ran something else, recognition, curiosity, the first stirrings of dangerous fascination. The others, she said, deflecting. Lydia and Cassius. What do they want? This estate, the territory it commands. Blackthorn was once the strongest house in the region, and its holdings are valuable. Bitterness crept into his voice. They've been waiting for me to fall into the hollow, to abandon everything so they can claim it. Tonight proved I'm still capable of caring about something that makes me either an obstacle or a target. So I've made you vulnerable. No. The word was absolute. You've made me remember why immortality matters. There's a difference. Outside, something howled too large to be a dog, too close to be comfortable. Kieran's head snapped toward the sound, body tensing into predatory alertness. You should go, he said. Dawn is 4 hours away, but the roads aren't safe in darkness. I'll arrange for daytime access if you prefer. I work at night, Ilara interrupted. When are you going to feed? The question clearly surprised him. I have arrangements. Donors in the city. I feed every few days. And you're overdue. His smile was rueful. You're observant. I'm an artist. I notice when people are holding themselves too carefully. She stood, gathering her materials. I'll be back tomorrow night. We'll start preliminary sketches. Ilara, you gave me sanctuary, told me the rules, trusted me with your grief. She met his silver eyes steadily. Now let me do what you hired me for. Let me transform this room into something that proves beautiful things can grow from loss. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then, slowly, he bowed. Old world and genuine. Thank you, he said quietly. She left him standing in the gallery, surrounded by ghosts and lamplight, looking more alone than any being should after 200 years. Outside, the October wind carried roses and something wilder. Ilara drove home wondering what she'd just agreed to. Chapter 5. Blood and Brushstruck. Cicella spent the next day in her studio, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. Every sketch came out wrong, too timid, too controlled, nothing like the wild transformation Kieran had commissioned. She kept seeing his face when he'd spoken about his family. The centuries of grief carved into immortal features. Vampire. The word still felt absurd in daylight, but she'd seen Lydia's predatory smile, felt the temperature drop when Kieran's anger manifested, noticed details her rational mind had catalogued even while her instincts screamed danger. Cold hands, no breath, perfect stillness. She'd painted monsters before metaphorical ones, demons born from Marcus's cruelty and her own. But this was different. Kieran wasn't a monster. He was something older than the concept, carrying loss no human could comprehend. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The east entrance will be unlocked after sunset. Come when ready. No pressure, no demand, just an invitation she could refuse. Ilara looked at her failed sketches, thought about her empty apartment, the silence that had defined her life since Marcus. 6 months of invisible existence, speaking only when necessary, creating nothing that mattered. She texted back, I'll be there at 9. The estate felt different tonight, less hostile, more watchful. Kieran met her at the east entrance as promised, dressed in casual elegance that somehow looked natural on him. A navy sweater, dark trousers, almost human, except for the inhuman grace with which he moved. You look tired, he observed. Couldn't sleep, kept thinking about the gallery. She followed him inside. Portfolio case lighter tonight, just her sketchbook and charcoals. And about what you said, your family. I shouldn't have burdened you with that. It wasn't a burden, it was context. She paused in the corridor, studying a portrait of a woman with kind eyes and Kieran's cheekbones. Your wife, Catherine. His voice softened. She was a physician's daughter, brilliant and brave. She married me knowing I was nightborn, never feared what I was. Our daughter had her courage. You loved them very much. I love them still. Death doesn't erase that, not even after 200 years. He continued walking, but slower, as if weighted by memory. Catherine made me promise that if anything happened to her, I wouldn't let grief turn me cruel. I've tried to honor that. They reached the gallery. Kieran had added more lamps as promised, casting warm light across the waiting walls. A small table held fresh supplies, canvas paints, brushes of every size, professional quality, expensive, thoughtful. You didn't have to do this, Ilara said. I wanted you to have everything you might need. If you work here at night, you shouldn't have to carry supplies back and forth. He moved to the windows, giving her space. I'll leave you to sketch. I have matters to attend to in the West Wing. Kieran, wait. He turned, silver eyes catching lamplight. Ilara set down her case, choosing words carefully. You said you feed every few days. It's been at least 3 nights since we met, probably longer. You're hungry. His expression shuddered. That's not your concern. It is if you're weak in Lydia's, people come back. She kept her voice steady, clinical. You said, vampires need consent to feed. I'm giving it. Use me as a donor. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Absolutely not. Why? Because you don't understand what you're offering. He moved closer, and now she could see the tension in him, the rigid control of someone fighting instinct. Feeding creates intimacy. The donor feels pleasure, often intense. And the vampire, we feel everything you feel. Your fear, your desire, your grief. It's invasive, and intoxicating, and dangerous. More dangerous than you being too weak to protect either of us. Ilara, I'm not fragile. She pulled off her scarf, exposing her throat. The gesture felt both brave and insane. You gave me sanctuary. Let me give you this. Kieran stared at her neck like it was a loaded weapon. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. Explain exactly what will happen, and I'll decide if I can handle it. He was silent for a long moment, warring with himself. Finally, I would need to bite fangs here and here. He gestured to his own neck, the curve where it met shoulder. The venom in our bite causes euphoria in humans, makes feeding pleasurable instead of painful. You would feel warm, dizzy, safe, and I would feel what you feel while drinking. Your emotions become mine for those moments, and after. Weakness, possibly, depending how much I take. A mark that fades within days, and memory you'd remember the intimacy, the vulnerability. His eyes met hers. I would know you, Ilara, know what you taste like, what you feel in your deepest self. There's no privacy in that exchange. She should refuse, should recognize this as another man seeking intimacy she wasn't ready to give. But Kieran wasn't Marcus. He was giving her every reason to say no, explaining the risks, respecting her choice even as hunger clearly gnawed at him. And she was so tired of being afraid. I trust you, she said simply. His laugh was pained. You shouldn't, but I do. And you need to feed, and I'm offering. She moved closer, tilting her head to expose more of her throat. Show me I'm not wrong to trust you. Prove Marcus didn't break my ability to judge character. That reached him. She saw it, in the way his eyes widened. Understanding clicking into place. This wasn't just about feeding, it was about her reclaiming agency, choosing vulnerability on her own terms. Sit, he said quietly, guiding her to a cushioned bench near the windows. If you feel afraid at any point, say stop. I will stop immediately. Do you understand? Yes. Kieran knelt beside her, bringing them to eye level. His hand came up to cup her jaw, thumb brushing her pulse point. The touch was gentle, reverent, asking permission even now. Close your eyes, he whispered. Breathe. She obeyed, felt his cool breath against her throat, the careful brush of his lips finding the right spot, then pressure sharp and bright end, sudden warmth flooding through her. Veins like golden honey. The pleasure was immediate and overwhelming. Not sexual, exactly, but intimate in ways she had no words for. Safe and dangerous and alive. She felt Kieran's presence in her mind, not invading, just there, sharing the experience, feeling what she felt. And beneath her pleasure, she felt his relief like prayer, gratitude like worship, and underneath it all, a loneliness so profound it made her chest ache. 200 years alone, 200 years of untouched grief. Her hand found his hair, fingers tangling in the dark strands, not pulling him closer, just connecting, offering comfort the only way she could in this strange moment. She felt him shudder against her throat, felt his emotional walls crack, just slightly. Then he pulled back, licking the wound closed with careful precision. The marks sealed instantly, leaving only faint pink lines that would fade. Kieran sat back on his heels, breathing hard despite not needing air. His eyes had gone darker, pupils blown wide. Ilara, he said, and her name sounded like a confession. Are you all right? She felt dizzy, warm, strange, but not afraid. I felt. He stopped, visibly composing himself. You're grieving too. Not just Marcus, something older. a loss you've carried for years. Her throat tightened. She'd forgotten he would feel everything, see through to her deepest wounds. The father who'd left, the mother who'd died, the years of making herself small, to avoid being abandoned again. I'm sorry, she whispered, that you had to feel that. Don't apologize for your pain. He stood, offering his hand to help her up. Thank you, for the trust, for the gift. Ilara took his hand, letting him steady her. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Two people trying not to drown and lost. His smile was sad and genuine. Perhaps that's why you're here, to help each other remember how to surface. Outside, the moon rose higher. Inside, something between them had shifted, intimacy forged in blood and trust, and the strange alchemy of two wounded creatures choosing not to face darkness alone. Chapter 6. The house declares war for 3 weeks. Ilara painted in the gallery, while Kieran kept his careful distance. She arrived at sunset, worked until dawn touched the horizon, and he appeared only briefly, bringing tea, checking her progress, offering quiet observations about composition and light. The mural grew across the walls in layers, summer bleeding into autumn, light fracturing into shadow, human figures reaching towards something beyond mortality, caught in the threshold between states. It was her best work, uninhibited and raw, everything she'd been too afraid to create since Marcus. Kieran never mentioned the feeding, neither did she, but the intimacy lingered between them like a chord, still vibrating unspoken, undeniable. Tonight, she was working on the north wall when footsteps echoed from the corridor, not Kieran's measured pace. These were multiple sets, moving with purpose. She set down her brush as 5 figures entered the gallery. Lydia led them, dressed in crimson silk that looked like liquid blood. Cassius followed, flanked by 3 others Ilara didn't recognize. All of them carried that predatory stillness, those 2 bright eyes, still here. Lydia's smile was knife. How devoted. Tell me, little artist, has our Kieran fed from you yet? Or is he still playing the gentleman while he wastes away? Ilara kept her voice level. He's not here, and I'm working. Please leave. She has manners. Cassius circled the mural, examining her work with theatrical interest and talent, I'll admit. Though I wondered, does she know what she's painting? Transformation, the very thing Kieran can't bring himself to do. What are you talking about? He hasn't told you. Lydia moved closer, and Ilara fought the urge to step back. House Blackthorn fell because Kieran refused to turn new vampires, refused to build his bloodline. He could have created an army, could have secured his power. Instead, he clung to his mortal wife's memory and let his house die. One of the others laughed, a woman with white blonde hair and cruel amusement in her eyes. He's pathetic. A vampire who won't embrace what he is. The elders have lost patience with his weakness. The elders? Ilara's pulse kicked up. The oldest among us, the ones who maintain order. Lydia's fingers traced the edge of Ilara's painting, close enough to smudge. They've declared Kieran unfit to hold Blackthorn territory. In 2 weeks, on the new moon, House Corvus will challenge him formally. He can surrender the estate peacefully, or we take it by force. And if he fights, then he dies. Cassius spoke casually, examining his nails. 1 vampire against an entire house. The outcome is certain, though I admit, I'll be disappointed. Kieran was magnificent once, before grief made him soft. Ilara's hands clenched. He's not soft, he's grieving. There's a difference, is there? Lydia tilted her head, bird-like and predatory. Grief that lasts 2 centuries isn't grief, darling. It's a choice, a refusal to continue living, and the Nightborn don't tolerate that kind of weakness in their leaders. He's not your leader. No, but he holds what should be ours. Lydia stepped back, addressing the group. 2 weeks. Tell him when he returns. Tell him House Corvus comes on the new moon, and he can either surrender or fall. They left like shadows, there and gone, leaving Ilara shaking with anger and fear. She found Kieran in the library an hour later, surrounded by ancient texts and maps. He looked up as she entered, and his expression shifted immediately from concentration to concern. What happened? They came. Lydia, Cassius, 3 others. Ilara crossed to his desk, gripping the edge. They said the elders declared you unfit. That House Corvus will challenge you on the new moon. Kieran went very still. I see. That's all you have to say. They're going to try to kill you, and you say, I see. What would you have me say? He stood, moving to the window. They're right. I am unfit. I've let Blackthorn crumble, refused to build a bloodline, clung to the past while the world moved forward. Perhaps it's time to surrender what I can't properly defend. You can't be serious. I'm tired. Ilara. His voice carried weight beyond the words. 247 years of maintaining traditions, upholding laws, protecting territory, I no longer care about. Maybe it's time to let go. She stared at him, seeing clearly now what Lydia meant. He wasn't just grieving, he was giving up, sliding toward that hollow he'd described, that emptiness where nothing mattered. What about the mural? She demanded. You'll be paid in full regardless. I'll ensure. I don't care about the money. She moved around the desk, forcing him to look at her. You hired me to paint transformation, to turn grief into something beautiful. Were you lying? Was this just busy work to fill the hours before you gave up? His jaw tightened. It's not that simple. Then, explain it to me, because from where I'm standing, you're doing exactly what Marcus did to me, using pretty words while planning to disappear. That landed. She saw him flinch, saw genuine pain cross his features. That's not fair, isn't it? You made me trust you, fed from me, felt everything I've been carrying. You know what abandonment did to me, and you're about to do it anyway. Her voice cracked. At least be honest about it. Kieran's control shattered. What do you want from me? To fight a war I can't win, to watch House Corvus tear through this estate, destroy everything Catherine loved, probably kill you in the process. His voice rose, anguished. I'm trying to protect you by surrendering. I don't need protection. I need you to fight for something that matters. Nothing matters. The words echoed through the library, raw and terrible. My family is dead. My house is gone. I've spent 2 centuries alone, and I'm tired of pretending I have anything worth defending. You have this. Ilara grabbed his hand, pressing it against her chest where her heart hammered. You have me choosing to be here, choosing to trust you, choosing to believe you're worth caring about. If that doesn't matter, then but don't pretend you're doing it for my sake. Kieran stared at their joined hands, his cool against her warm. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. If I fight and lose, they'll kill you to punish me. You understand that. If you surrender, where will you go? Away, somewhere they won't follow, and me. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw everything he wouldn't say, the loneliness waiting beyond this estate. The centuries stretching ahead, with nothing to fill them. You'll be safe. You'll finish your career, create beautiful things, live the life you deserve, without you, without a vampire who's already given up. He pulled his hand away gently. You deserve better than someone who can't remember how to hope. Ilara felt tears threatening and hated them, hated that she was crying over someone she'd known less than a month. But the intimacy of blood sharing didn't lie. She'd felt his depths, knew the good man buried beneath centuries of grief. 3 weeks ago, you told me I made you feel hope again, she said quietly. Was that true, or just something to keep your donor coming back? It was true. His voice broke on the words. You made me feel alive for the first time in decades. That's why I have to let you go before Corvus destroys you. What if I don't want to go? Then you're braver and more foolish than I deserve. Outside, storm clouds gathered. Inside, the library felt too small for the weight of what hung between them, hope and despair, connection and inevitable separation. 2 weeks, Ilara said finally. We have 2 weeks, until the new moon. Yes. Then I have 2 weeks to finish the mural, and you have 2 weeks to decide if you're going to fight for this place, or let Corvus have it without a struggle. Ilara, I'm not leaving, she said firmly. Not until the work is done. After that, she swallowed hard. After that, we'll see. She left him standing among his books and maps, alone with his impossible choices. Behind her, she heard him whisper, I'm sorry. She didn't turn around. Chapter 7. The night the house burned 10 days before the new moon, Ilara arrived to find the estate's west wing engulfed in flames. She abandoned her car in the driveway, running toward the inferno. Heat slapped her face even from a distance. Windows exploded outward, showering the lawn with glittering shards. Smoke billowed black against the October sky. Kieran, she screamed his name, searching desperately through the chaos. Kieran, he materialized from the smoke, clothes singed, face streaked with ash. Relief flooded through her so intensely her knees weakened. Get back, he commanded, voice raw. The entire wing is going to collapse. Are you hurt? I'll heal. You need to, he stopped, eyes widening. The gallery. God. The gallery. They both turned. Flames were spreading fast, racing along the ancient wood toward the east wing, toward 3 weeks of work, toward the transformation he'd commissioned, toward everything she'd poured herself into. No. The word ripped from Ilara's throat. She started running. Kieran caught her with inhuman speed. It's not worth your life. 3 weeks of work can be redone. You can't. He held her against his chest, and she felt his heart hammering too fast, panicked in ways vampires shouldn't be. I won't lose you to flames like I lost them. The vulnerability in his voice stopped her struggling. She looked up at his face, saw genuine terror etched into immortal features. Who did this? She asked Corvus. A warning, I'd guess, or an attempt to flush me out, weaken me before the challenge. His arms tightened around her. I should have anticipated this. Should have protected the estate better. Where are they now? Gone. They struck during my day's leap, knowing I'd be vulnerable. Anger bled through his words. Cowards who attack when their opponent can't fight back. Sirens wailed in the distance. Kieran released her immediately, stepping back. You called emergency services. Automatic system. His expression turned grim. I have to go. Can't be here when humans arrive asking questions. What about the fire? It'll burn until it runs out of fuel. The west wing is lost. The gallery. He looked toward the east wing, flames reflected in his silver eyes. I'm sorry, Alara. Your work was paint on walls. We're alive. That's what matters. He stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. You spent weeks, and I'll spend weeks more if I have to. She grabbed his hand, squeezing hard. Go. Hide. I'll deal with the fire department. They'll ask questions. I'll say I'm the artist hired to restore the interior. That I arrived to find it burning. Called 911 immediately. They don't need to know about you, Alara. Go. She pushed him toward the tree line. Before someone sees you covered in ash and asks where the owner is. He hesitated one more moment, then moved with liquid speed into the darkness. Disappeared like he'd never existed. Ilara turned back to face the inferno alone. 3 hours later, she sat wrapped in an emergency blanket while firefighters finished containing the blaze. The west wing was a total loss, just charred beams and smoking rubble. The gallery had survived, barely, though smoke damage had ruined her mural beyond repair. You're lucky you weren't inside, the fire chief said, reviewing his notes. Old estates like this, they go up fast. You say you're working here. Commissioned restoration work. The owner is overseas. The lies came easier than they should. I have keys to come and go. You'll need to contact him. Let him know what happened. Insurance will want statements. Of course. They left as dawn threatened the horizon. Alara waited until their trucks disappeared, then walked back toward the estate. The doors were unlocked, Kieran's invitation still standing despite everything. She found him in the library, staring at architectural plans of the house. He looked up as she entered, and the relief on his face was almost painful to witness. You're safe, he said. So are you. She collapsed into a chair, exhaustion hitting all at once. The west wing is gone. The gallery is smoke damaged, but structurally sound. They think it was electrical. Good lie. I'm getting better at those. She studied him, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the desk edge. This isn't just about territory, is it? Corvus wants to break you. They want me to surrender everything Catherine and I built. This estate, the protections I've maintained, the few human families I still watch over in the region. His voice went cold. Lydia knows destroying the gallery would hurt most. You're the first person in decades I've allowed close, so they burned it to prove you're weak, that you can't protect what you care about. Yes, Alara leaned forward. Or they burned it because they're scared. Because I make you stronger, not weaker. That stopped him. How do you figure that? You fed from me. You felt hope again. That's dangerous to the Makiran who remembers how to care, is harder to defeat than one drowning in the hollow. She stood, moving to his desk. They're trying to isolate you, make you believe you're alone. Classic abuser tactics. You're comparing ancient vampire politics to human relationship dynamics. Aren't they the same? Power, control, making someone believe they're worthless so they don't fight back. She held his gaze. Marcus did the same thing to me. Made me believe my voice didn't matter, that speaking up made me clingy and pathetic. I let him silence me because I believed his version of reality. Understanding dawned in Kieran's eyes. And you think I'm letting Corvus do the same? I think you're so convinced you're weak that you can't see your own strength. Alara placed her hands over his. You survived 2 centuries alone, maintained an entire estate, protected human families from other vampires, fed without killing, loved without possessing. That's not weakness, Kieran. That's extraordinary control. It's not enough to win a war, maybe not alone. She squeezed his hands. But you're not alone anymore. He pulled away, agitated. You're human, fragile, One bite from Cassius and you're dead. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Ilara's voice steadied. 3 weeks ago, you gave me sanctuary. Let me return the favor. Let me help you fight. How you can't face vampires, no. But I can think like a human. Corvus has been night-burned so long they've forgotten how mortals operate. That's an advantage. Her mind raced, piecing together strategy. You said vampires have rules, laws. What happens if Corvus breaks them? Kieran's expression shifted. The elders would intervene, punish the offenders. They burned your house during day sleep. Isn't that against the rules? No fair challenges when the opponent can't fight back. It's a gray area. They didn't attack me directly, but they destroyed your property, threatened someone under your protection. Ilara's pulse quickened. Document everything. Build a case. Make Corvus answer for their actions before the elders. For the first time since the fire, Kieran smiled small, but genuine. You're suggesting legal warfare? I'm suggesting you fight smart instead of just strong. Use their own laws against them. She moved closer, and while they're distracted defending themselves, we rebuild, fortify, prepare for the challenge on your terms, not theirs. We, he repeated softly. You keep saying we, because you're stuck with me now. Ilara tried for lightness despite her exhaustion. I've got 3 weeks of ruined work to redo, and I don't quit halfway through a commission, even if the client is a vampire at war. Especially then. She held his gaze. You asked me to paint transformation. Well, here it is, the moment where you choose what you're becoming. Victim or survivor. Isolated or connected. Dead or alive. Kieran stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he knelt before her cherishing creature, offering mortal woman a gesture of profound respect. If I fight, he said quietly, people may die, possibly you. If you don't fight, you definitely die. At least, this way we have a chance. You're insane probably. She touched his face, ash-streaked and beautiful. But so are you, for caring about a human artist with trust issues and a vendetta against bullies. His laugh was surprised and genuine. When did you get so brave? When I watched you run into a burning building and realized I couldn't lose you. The admission hung between them, honest and terrifying. Kieran's expression softened into something she couldn't name. Gratitude, wonder, fear, hope. Ilara, don't. She pressed fingers to his lips. Don't say anything we can't take back. Not yet. Just fight with me. Let me help you remember why immortality matters. He kissed her fingertips, gentle, reverent, achingly careful. All right, he whispered. We fight. Outside, dawn broke over the smoking ruins. Inside, something new began to burn. Chapter 8. Evidence in ashes. They worked through the following nights like conspirators planning a revolution. Kieran taught Ilara the intricacies of Nightborn law, the ancient codes passed down through millennia. The formal challenges, the protocols for disputes between houses. She took notes in her sketchbook. Artists' precision applied to vampire politics. The elders meet in conclave once per season, Kieran explained, spreading documents across the library table. Winter conclave is in 3 days, in the catacombs beneath the old cathedral downtown. That's our window to present evidence against Corvus. Ilara studied photographs of the fire damage she'd taken. Will they listen? To you, I mean, you said yourself, they declared you unfit. They declared me unable to maintain my territory effectively. But if I can prove Corvus acted dishonorably, violated the codes, it changes the dynamic. His finger traced the burn patterns. Arson during day sleep isn't explicitly forbidden, but it violates the spirit of fair challenge. Spirit versus letter of the law. Lawyers love that argument. She pulled out her laptop. What else can we document? Other instances of Corvus breaking protocol. Kieran's expression darkened. They've been pressuring the human families under my protection. Nothing overt, just accidents, coincidences. A car crash here, a house fire there. Enough to make people nervous, make them question whether my sanctuary still means anything. That's witness intimidation. Ilara's journalist instincts, dormant since art school, flickered to life. Do you have names? Dates? We can interview them, build testimony. They're terrified. Most won't speak against Corvus. Then we find ones who will. She met his eyes. You said you've protected families for decades. Some of them must trust you enough to help. Hope and doubt warred in his expression. It's been a long time since I asked anyone for help. Get used to it. We're building a case, which means witnesses, evidence, documentation. She started listing items on her fingers: fire marshal's report, medical records from the accidents, testimony from protected families, photos of the damage, everything that proves Corvus is systematically destroying your ability to maintain territory. "You're enjoying this," Kieran observed, something like admiration in his voice. "I'm good at research. Used to want to be an investigative journalist before art school." She shrugged. "Turns out, documentation skills transfer nicely to vampire legal warfare." He laughed, genuine and surprised. The sound transformed his face, centuries falling away to reveal someone younger, less burdened. "Catherine would have liked you. She always said the best defense was thorough preparation." "She sounds formidable." Sadness crept back in, but gentler now. A physician's daughter in an era when women weren't supposed to study medicine. She learned anyway, practiced in secret, saved lives the official doctors would have lost. "That's how we met." She treated a vampire injured in a territorial dispute, never flinched when she saw what he was, and you fell in love with her courage. I fell in love with her humanity. The way she cared fiercely despite knowing how short mortal life is. Kieran's gaze turned distant. "I offered to turn her many times. She always refused, said she wanted to live fully as herself, not as an approximation." Ilara's throat tightened. "That must have hurt." "It did, but I loved her more for the choice. She knew what she wanted. Never let me pressure her into immortality she didn't desire." He focused back on Ella. "That's why I'm telling you now. If we win this fight, if Corvus retreats, there will come a time when I might offer you the same choice, and I need you to know I will respect your answer, whatever it is." The weight of his words settled over her. Immortality, the chance to never age, never die, live forever in the shadows alongside him, the fantasy every gothic romance promised, the trap that felt like freedom. "I'm not ready to think about that," she said carefully. "Right now, I'm focused on making sure you survive long enough for it to matter." "Fair enough." He gathered the documents. "I'll reach out to the families tonight, see who's willing to testify. You should go home, get some actual sleep." "I'll sleep after Winter Conclave." Ilara stood, stretching tired muscles. "But I need to see the gallery first. Assess what can be salvaged." They walked together through corridors that smelled of smoke and char. The gallery doors opened with resistance warped from heat. Inside, destruction greeted them. The mural was ruined. Smoke had stained everything, turned her careful colorwork into muddy gray. Where flames had licked the walls, paint had bubbled and peeled. 3 weeks of work, destroyed. Ilara felt tears threaten, and blinked them back. Not now. Later, maybe, when she was alone. Right now, she needed to be strong. "I'm sorry," Kieran said quietly. "If I'd installed better fire suppression." "Stop." She turned to face him. "Corvus did this, not you. Don't take responsibility for their cruelty. But your work was beautiful, and now it's gone, and I'll make something more beautiful in its place." She managed a tired smile. Artists are used to starting over. Every blank canvas is a fresh chance to get it right. He studied her face like he was memorizing it. "How are you this resilient?" "Practice. Marcus broke me once I learned how to rebuild from fragments." She moved to the center of the ruined gallery, turning slowly. "Besides, the structure is sound. The walls are still here. I just need to sand, prime, start fresh. After Winter Conclave. After we deal with Corvus." After she agreed, one crisis at a time. Kieran moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "Ilara, I need to ask why. Are you doing this? Really? You could walk away right now, finish the commission remotely, stay safe from all of this." She'd been expecting the question, had asked it herself, in the quiet hours. "Because nobody stood up for me when Marcus destroyed my reputation. Nobody challenged him. Nobody said his behavior was wrong. Everyone just watched." Her voice steadied. "I won't watch someone else get destroyed by bullies who think power makes them untouchable. Not when I can help. Even if it's dangerous. Especially then, what's the point of surviving if you never use that survival for something meaningful?" Kieran reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand cupped her face with infinite gentleness. "You terrify me," he whispered. "Your courage, your kindness, your absolute refusal to let fear win. I've existed for 200 years, and you're the bravest person I've ever known." "I'm not brave, I'm just tired of being afraid." That's what courage is. Fear, but moving forward anyway. They stood in the ruined gallery, surrounded by smoke-stained walls and broken dreams. And Ilara felt something shift between them. Not love, not yet. Too soon for that word. But the foundation of it, Trust forged in crisis, partnership built on mutual respect. The possibility that two broken people might heal each other. 3 days until winter conclave, she said softly. We should prepare, yes. But he didn't move, didn't step back, just held her face like she was something precious. Thank you, for staying, for fighting, for making me remember why immortality can be a gift instead of a curse. Thank you for giving me sanctuary when I needed it most. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Then, with visible effort, he released her and stepped back. I'll drive you home. Dawn is close. You don't have to, please. Let me make sure you're safe. It's the least I can do. She nodded, following him out of the ruined gallery. Behind them, smoke-damaged walls waited for transformation. 3 days until winter conclave. 3 days to build a case. Strong enough to save a vampire who'd forgotten how to save himself. Outside, November wind carried the promise of winter. Ilara pulled her coat tighter and thought about courage, about choosing to fight even when the odds seemed impossible, about finding her voice again in the most unlikely place, defending a vampire who'd spent 2 centuries silent. Chapter 9, The Winter Conclave. The catacombs beneath the cathedral were older than the city above. Pre-colonial stonework carved by hands that knew different gods. Ilara followed Kieran down spiral stairs that seemed to descend forever, her breath misting in air that hadn't seen sunlight in centuries. Stay close, he murmured, and remember, don't speak unless directly addressed. The elders value protocol above all else, even above justice, especially above justice. His hand found hers in the darkness, steadying. They've maintained order for millennia through rigid adherence to law. Emotion is weakness to them. They emerged into a vast chamber lit by hundreds of candles. The space stretched impossibly wide, columns carved with symbols Ilara didn't recognize supporting a ceiling lost to shadow, and everywhere vampires. Dozens of them, arranged in formal groupings by house affiliation. Ilara recognized Lydia and Cassius among the Corvus contingent, both dressed in ceremonial black and crimson. They smiled when they saw her, predatory and amused. At the chamber's far end, 3 thrones sat elevated on a stone dais. The elders, they looked ancient in ways that transcended age, faces like weathered stone, eyes that had witnessed empires rise and fall. The woman in the center wore white, her hair silver as moonlight. Flanking her, 2 men in gray robes watched the assembled vampires with expressions of perfect neutrality. House Blackthorn, the central elder said, voice carrying despite its softness. You requested audience at Winter Conclave. State your grievance. Kieran Bodhi Pormal, Old World Courtesy. Honored elders. I bring complaint against House Corvus for violation of honorable challenge protocols and systematic destruction of protected territory. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Lydia's smile sharpened. Corvus denies wrongdoing. The elder continued, what evidence do you present? This was it. Ilara squeezed Kieran's hand once, then released it, stepping forward with the leather portfolio she'd prepared. Her heart hammered, but her voice stayed steady. Documentation, she said, placing the portfolio on a table before the dais. Fire marshal's report confirming arson. Medical records showing a pattern of accidents among families under Blackthorn protection. Witness testimony from Who Are You? The male elder on the left spoke, his tone sharp as broken glass. Ilara Thorne, human artist, commissioned by Lord Kieran for restoration work. She met his gaze directly, remembering what Kieran taught. Her submission invited contempt among the night. The fire destroyed 3 weeks of my work. I have standing to testify. Humans don't have standing in conclave, Lydia interjected smoothly. This is Nightborn business. I'm under Blackthorn protection, Ilara countered, which means attacks on Blackthorn territory are attacks on me. That gives me standing. The central elder's lips twitched amusement or approval. Impossible to tell. She knows our laws. Unusual for a mortal. Proceed, Miss Thorne. Ilara opened the portfolio, laying out evidence with the precision of a prosecutor. Photos of the burned West Wing. Timeline of incidents targeting protected families. Written statements from 3 humans willing to testify about Corvus intimidation. The pattern is clear, she said. House Corvus isn't challenging Lord Kieran. Honorably, they're systematically destroying his ability to maintain territory before the formal challenge even begins. That violates the spirit of spirit means nothing, Cassius interrupted, stepping forward. Letter of law is absolute. Show me where our actions are explicitly forbidden. Destruction of property during day sleep is not forbidden. Blackthorn's security failures are his own responsibility. Threatening protected humans, we've threatened no one. If accidents befall those under failing protection, that merely proves Blackthorn's unfitness. Cassius's smile was vicious. You've documented coincidences, nothing more. Ilara's hands clenched. He was right, they'd been careful. Stayed just inside legal boundaries while demolishing Kieran's position through attrition. However, the female elder spoke, her voice like wind through dead leaves. The accumulation of coincidences does suggest intent. Corvus, you walk dangerously close to dishonor. But we haven't crossed the line, Lydia said sweetly. And surely, the elders won't punish legal behavior simply because it's inconvenient for a failing house. Silence fell, heavy and expectant. Ilara felt Kieran's tension beside her, saw the way he held himself, rigid, expecting failure, expecting loss. She thought of Marcus, of the way he'd destroyed her reputation through technically legal cruelty, of how the art world had shrugged because nothing he did was explicitly wrong, just vicious. She'd been silent then. Let him win through legal technicalities. Not again. You're right, Ilara said, voice carrying through the chamber. Corvus hasn't broken any explicit laws, but neither has Lord Kieran. You declared him unfit to maintain territory, but by what standard? He's protected human families for decades without incident, until Corvus began their campaign. He's maintained this estate through centuries. He's upheld every law, paid every tithe, honored every tradition. He's failed to build his bloodline, the male elder stated, failed to turn new vampires, expand his house's power. That is unfitness, or it's restraint. Ilara's pulse raced, but she pushed forward. How many vampires has Corvus turned in the past decade? 50, 100. How many of those turnings were truly consensual, and how many were humans pressured by the promise of power? Lydia's expression went dangerous. Careful, mortal. First law, Ilara continued, addressing the elders directly. Consent is absolute. Vampires cannot turn without genuine, unpressured invitation. If Corvus has been building their bloodline through coercion, even subtle coercion, that's a violation, a serious one. These are grave accusations, the central elder said softly. Do you have proof? Not yet, but I'm requesting formal investigation. Ilara pulled out one more document, the petition she and Kieran had prepared as their nuclear option. Under Third Conclave Protocol, any house may request elder review of another's turning practices. I'm invoking that protocol on Lord Kieran's behalf. Chaos erupted. Corvus vampires hissed protests. Other houses murmured among themselves. Lydia looked murderous. The elders conferred in whispers too quiet for human ears. Finally, the woman in white raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. House Blackthorn invokes ancient right. We grant the petition. House Corvus will submit to review of all turnings performed in the past 20 years. Her gaze swept the assembly. Until investigation concludes, the challenge against Blackthorn territory is suspended. That could take months. Cassius protested. Then you should have kept better records. The elder's tone allowed no argument. Conclave is adjourned. Corvus, you will provide documentation by next new moon. The candles guttered simultaneously, plunging the chamber into darkness. When they relit moments later, the elders were gone. Ilara sagged against Kieran, adrenaline crashing. Did we just win a reprieve? Not the war, but time. His arm came around her, steadying. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I didn't even think to question their turning practices. Marcus taught me that bullies always have something to hide. You just have to dig deep enough. She looked up at him. How angry is Corvus going to be? Very. His expression turned grim. We need to leave, now. They moved toward the stairs, but Lydia intercepted them. Up close, her beauty was terrible, perfect and cold and ancient. Clever mortal, she purred. You've bought Kieran a few months, but investigations end, and when they do, we'll come for your territory, your protection, and your fragile little artist. Her smile was razors. I wonder how brave she'll be when we take our time killing her. Kieran moved between them, protective instinct, overriding caution. Threaten her again, an investigation or not, I'll challenge you personally. I look forward to it. Lydia's gaze shifted to Ilara. Enjoy your borrowed time, darling. Make the most of it. She swept away, Corvus following like shadows. Kieran pulled Ilara toward the stairs. They climbed in silence until cathedral bells rang above, marking midnight. Only when they reached the street, surrounded by oblivious humans, did he finally speak. You took a terrible risk. It worked. It could have gotten you killed. But it didn't. She grabbed his lapels, forcing him to look at her. We bought time, now we use it. His laugh was shaky, almost disbelieving. I spent 2 centuries alone, and you walk into my life demanding I fight, dragging me to conclave, challenging ancient houses. He shook his head. You're either the bravest person alive, or completely insane. Can't I be both? He kissed her, then sudden and desperate and reverent, not claiming, not possessing, just gratitude and relief, and something deeper neither was ready to name. When he pulled back, his eyes shone silver in the streetlight. Thank you, he whispered, for fighting when I'd forgotten how. Thank you for being worth fighting for. Above them, snow began to fall first of the season, soft and clean. They'd won a battle, but the war was far from over. Chapter 10, Transformation 3. Months later, on the first night of spring, Ilara stood before the completed mural. The investigation had dragged through winter Corvus stalling, Kieran providing evidence, the elders deliberating with glacial patience, but 2 weeks ago, the verdict came. House Corvus had coerced 17 turnings through manipulation and false promises. Their punishment was severe territory seizure, public sentence, and prohibition from turning new vampires for 50 years. The challenge against Blackthorn was permanently dissolved. They'd won now. In the restored gallery, candlelight danced across 4 walls of transformation. Summer figures reached toward autumn shadows. Human forms became something more, not monstrous, but transcendent. Light and dark intertwined, neither consuming the other, both necessary for the whole. In the center panel, Ilara had painted 2 figures, a woman with her face, a man with Kieran's eyes. They stood at a threshold, hands clasped, choosing to cross together. It's finished, she said softly. Kieran stood behind her, close enough that she felt his presence like warmth despite his cool temperature. He'd been different these past months, lighter, more present. The shadow of the hollow had lifted, replaced by something cautiously hopeful. It's extraordinary, he said. Everything I hoped for, and more. You've turned grief into beauty. We both did. She turned to face him. This isn't just my work, Kieran. You let me in, trusted me with your pain. That's the real transformation. Hear you choosing connection over isolation. His hand came up to cup her face, familiar now after months of careful touches. I've been alone for so long, I forgot what it felt like to be seen, truly seen, not just observed. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. You see me, the grief, the fear, the centuries of mistakes, and you stayed anyway. Because beneath all that, I see someone worth knowing, someone who protected families for decades, who honored his wife's memory without letting it destroy him, who gave sanctuary to a broken artist and helped her remember her voice mattered. Ilara's throat tightened. You saved me too, you know, just by believing I was worth defending. Ilara. Her name was prayer and question both. She knew what he was asking. They danced around it for months, the pool between them, the intimacy of blood sharing, the nights spent working side by side, but neither had spoken the words, too afraid to name something that felt too big, too impossible. I love you, she said simply. I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, I know I'm mortal, and you're immortal, and there are 1,000 reasons this can't work, but I love you anyway. He stared at her like she'd performed a miracle. I love you too, God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. His voice cracked. But Ilara, I can't ask you to. Then don't ask. Let me choose. She stepped closer, eliminating the careful distance between them. I know what you're offering. Immortality. A life in the shadows, centuries as nightborn instead of decades as human. It's not just immortality. You'd lose daylight, normal food, the ability to have children. You'd watch everyone you know age and die while you stay frozen. His grip on her tightened. Catherine refused because she knew the cost. I won't pressure you. I'm not Catherine. Ilara held his gaze. I love daylight, but I love you more. I'm not ready to decide today, maybe not this year, but eventually, when the time feels right, ask me, and I'll give you my answer. What if you say no? Then we'll have whatever time we have, and I'll love you until my last breath, and you'll remember me when I'm gone. She smiled through tears. Either way, Kieran, I choose you, for however long we get. He kissed her, then deep and claiming and tender. Not the desperate kiss outside the cathedral, but something richer. A promise, a beginning. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. Nobody deserves anybody. We're just lucky we found each other. She laughed wetly. A vampire who'd forgotten how to hope and an artist who'd forgotten how to speak. We're quite a pair. The best pair. He pulled back slightly, studying her face. Will you stay here at the estate? Your apartment lease is ending, and there's so much space here going unused. Are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking if you'll make this place a home again. Paint in the gallery. Fill the rooms with your chaos. Remind me daily why immortality is a gift. His expression turned vulnerable. I'm asking if you'll let me love you, for as long as you'll have me. Ilara thought about her empty apartment, the loneliness she'd worn like armor since Marcus, thought about these past months of working beside Kieran, the easy companionship, the way he made tea without asking, and left lights on in her favorite workspaces, the way she felt safe here, seen here, loved here. Yes, she said, I'll stay. His smile transformed his entire face, joy unguarded, hope unrestrained. He swept her into his arms, spinning her in a circle that made her laugh, made her feel weightless and anchored simultaneously. When he set her down, they stood in the center of the mural, surrounded by images of transformation, the threshold between light and dark, the choice to become something new. We should celebrate, Kieran said. Properly. I haven't entertained in decades, but I could host a gathering, invite the few remaining honorable houses, show them Blackthorn isn't extinct, just evolving. A party. With you beside me, I think I can manage it. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Besides, it's time people saw what we've built here. Time they knew House Blackthorn stands for something different now. Not isolation, but connection. Not fear, but hope. Partnership, Ilara added. Yes, partnership. He kissed her forehead. Equal in all ways that matter. Outside, spring rain began to fall, gentle and cleansing. Inside, in the gallery where grief had been transformed to beauty, to people who'd been broken separately discovered they could be whole together, Kieran pulled her close, swaying to music only they could hear, and Ilara rested her head against his chest, listening to the unnecessary heartbeat he maintained out of habit, feeling utterly, impossibly safe. Thank you, he whispered against her hair, for refusing to let me give up, for fighting when I'd forgotten how, for seeing me as something more than a monster or a relic. Thank you for giving me sanctuary when I needed it most, for believing my voice mattered, for loving me brave enough to risk everything. She looked up at him, for showing me that transformation isn't about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more fully yourself. He smiled, that rare, genuine expression she'd worked months to earn. Together, then, whatever comes next. Together, she agreed. In the completed mural behind them, painted figures reached toward transformation, no longer trapped between states, but embracing both, light and shadow, mortal and immortal, separate and intertwined. The gallery had been a place of grief, now it held hope. The estate had been a monument to loss, now it was becoming a home. And two people who'd forgotten how to believe in happy endings discovered that sometimes the best stories are the ones you write together, one brave choice at a time. Months ago, Ilara Thorne had arrived at iron gates she should have refused to enter, had accepted an invitation from a vampire who should have been her doom. Instead, she'd found sanctuary, purpose, and love in the most unlikely place, in the shadows. She'd learned to shine again, and Kieran Blackthorn, ancient and alone, for 2 centuries, had learned something even more precious, how to live again. Epilogue 6 months later, Ilara's first gallery showing since the Marcus scandal opened to critical acclaim. The centerpiece was a series based on the Blackthorn moral transformation rendered in oils and hope. Kieran attended, watching from the shadows as humans praised his beloved's genius. Pride radiated from him in waves she could feel across the room. That night, as they walked through the estate's gardens under starlight, he asked the question that had waited patiently between them. Are you ready to choose? Ilara looked at the man who'd given her sanctuary, who'd helped her find her voice again, who loved her brave enough to let her decide her own fate. She thought about daylight, about mortality, about the life she'd known. Then she thought about centuries of nights beside him, of love that wouldn't end, of transformation chosen, not imposed. Ask me, she said. And under spring stars, with roses blooming around them, Kieran Blackthorn offered Ilara Thorne forever. Her answer transformed everything.